report coming from the last or this past weekend activities. Ajabia Mule is the chief of staff to Tinubu, the ticket Simba of Anambra. And hang on. Okay, my date is apologies. I should have fixed that. And that can be a distraction in itself. Sorry. It's like I'm like living in the past. Sorry about that. So today is the 15th. Take that on, okay? But let's get on with it. Right? So last weekend, Ajabia Mule organized, a kind of get together that will lead to an endorsement of a gathering. All right. So it was the ex-lawmakers in Nigeria, the ones they could get. They were all invited to congregate in Abeokuta. The purpose is to remind all of them that as everybody is getting ready for the 2027 charade, it is expected of them, right, to pitch their tent with Tinubu for so many reasons. It was also a meeting convened with an agenda of, fostering unity. That is, to talk more about how to keep us united without, not acknowledging, or should I say, with the acknowledgement of the existing tribalism, bigotry, and the rest of that, the weaponized tribalism. So Gbaja Amule is preaching unity, peace, and progress, because if everybody can see, Tinubu took a decision as a leader, not as a politician. And that is why he removed subsidy. He brought his reforms and all of that stuff, right? The first day he came to the office. And the reforms are working. Exchange rate is stabilized at over 1,600, practically from 400 naira, by the way. So it's stabilized. The inflation is coming down. They just announced, by the way, that their inflation dropped again to 20 point something, meaning things should be begin to get cheaper, just like they have promised. So to him, Tinubu did all of that because these were the actions that were supposed to have been taken decades ago. And he's doing that now for the sake of the future generation, not because of the next election. Meanwhile, the purpose of bringing them together was to, have them endorse Tinubu for second term. Right? So join Sha. So I have copies of that chart. So I've kind of cut some irrelevant stuff out, okay? And fair enough, I left some that you can ponder on, starting with his opening speech and every other thing therein, in part. That is where we are going to start from this evening. So as you are joining, remember, after reading all of that, right, share it before you kind of settle down, start engaging the broadcast. So in Abeokuta, where Tinubu's second term has now been endorsed by ex-lawmakers. So the host was Dubious Dapo. Gbaja was the chief convener, organizer. So here is part of, the opening speech. Let's start with that. Gbaja, Tinubu is a leader, and there's actually a bit of sleep. I hope you will notice it, right? There's a bit of a sleep in his conjectures, right? He said Tinubu took that decision because the leader thinks about the next elections. And I was like, no. I mean, the leaders think about the next generation. I'll take the first sleep. Let's start with this.
The National Forum of Former Legislators is a powerful network of public servants from across the country, men and women who have dedicated their lives to the service of this nation and have done so, some at significant personal cost. The members of this forum played vital roles in ensuring that the emergence of President Bola Ahmed Tinubu. Many continue to serve in government, helping our president serve this country and implement the renewed hope agenda. The federal cabinet alone includes 15 former members of the National Assembly. This is a first in history. Like one of our social commentators always say, you can fact check me. That number, 15, does not include the president. It does not include the vice president. It does not include the deputy chief of staff. It does not include the secretary to the government of the federation. And it does not even include me, all of whom are veterans of the federal parliament. The renewed hope agenda of President Bola Ahmed Tinubu is anchored on the unassailable belief that while it is not in our power to change the past, it is our obligation to do the hard work today so that our tomorrow can be better than all our yesteryears. The renewed hope agenda flows from our president's belief that yesterday is not ours to recover, but tomorrow is ours to win or lose. As such, we must build for ourselves and for our children a nation where everyone can succeed by the strength of their endeavors, where optimism is not reserved only for the privileged and powerful, and where peace and prosperity are the birthright of all our citizens. With the signing into law of the tax reforms, President Tinubu has ushered in a new era of economic justice, built on fairness, accountability, and national purpose. These are not the actions of a politician thinking about the next generation. Or rather, these are not the actions of a politician thinking about the next election. They are acts of extraordinary statesmanship by a leader whose highest concern is the fortune of the Nigerian people and the fate of the next generation. Let me put that in another way so that it sinks home. Many of us, and most of us, if I must say, are politicians. What I just said goes to this effect, or speaks to the choice that President Tinubu had to make. He could either be, or make a choice that he'll be a politician, or he'll be a leader. Let me tell you the difference between the two. A politician thinks about the next election. A leader thinks about the next generation. If President Tinubu had decided or opted to be a politician, trust me, the reforms you see now, which will have their consequences naturally, would only start in his second term. He would only embark on those reforms in his second term. But because of the conviction he had, and because he knew he had a job to do, not for himself, not for the purpose of the next election, but for the purpose, and he was thinking of the next generation, he decided to start his reforms from day one, risking everything. But we thank God that Nigerians are so astute, they've become so astute, that even they have seen and they understand where Mr. President is coming from and where he is going.
Now to unfa ma okuta to wa nbe ma yoku nbe ma sabi gbata ba nsa ewa.
Gbaja. You know something about their politicians or these guys is that they can nearly convince you if words are enough. the next generation. A leader thinks about the next generation, not the next election. Therefore, to Gbaja, Tinubu fits into that. And that is why, as they are currently doing, like doctoring data in order to look good on paper, when the reality is not really felt by people, while they continue to tell the people that, no, it's going to be better. The reform, what are the reforms? You devalued your currencies, and then you went borrowing while your citizens have been sorrowing. There is no real investment brought to Nigeria by Tinubu that you can say it is because of his reform. His best investors are the IMF, World Bank, Afrexim Bank, African Development Bank. These then Chinese, Exim Bank too. These are the regular customers of Tinubu. Everywhere he went, he's going with that bowl in his hands, begging, as much as they are making ridiculous pronouncements, which ordinarily, right, when you are making a reform, you say, you know what, our reforms on electricity, for example, Tinubu's reform is to tax you, is to pick your pocket. To them, that's reform. So they can tell you that they have more money. You get that now? But at the same time, they are borrowing more. And they are convincing you that you have more money doesn't mean that you can't borrow. But in that same breath, they are praising themselves that the reform is working. We have more money. There's more money. See, it's generating more money. And all of that ridiculous manipulation. And they will do it so convincingly. The future generation, Baba, Nigerians, so I don't know, maybe if you get debt forgiveness, true too, right? Except if you get debt forgiveness, even the Nigerians, those who, if Nigeria continue to exist, right? Nigerians that will be born in 100 years' time, right? If Tinubu stopped borrowing today and become so honest with you by opening their book for you, right? And stop borrowing entirely, it will still take Nigeria another 89 years to pay off the kind of a debt that Nigeria has currently incurred. Half of that by Tinubu. And that is what they are calling investment. It's not because they're making more money from you, even with all the taxes, because people have become poorer. So taxes in itself that they are, it's just like double taxation and some other chronic way of squeezing you, like the ones they get from the import. So far they know that the country relies more on importation. So yeah, they make a lot of money from that, not considering the fact that you are going to be the end users who eventually pay for all of that. Now they have more money, but yet his legacy projects that is announced, all of his projects from Lagos to Calabar, Sokoto to Badagry, this one, they were all attached to borrowing. Do you understand? Like every one of them is attached to borrowing. And in the process, they continue to push different lies that they themselves are believing. You get what I mean? And to lift people out of poverty for these guys is what they call the intervention. Is by sharing 5,000 naira or 10,000 naira to a handful of people. Why billions, hundreds of billions would develop wings and disappear. But yeah, Gbaja, Surulere, Aristotle II, he was duly prepared. He used the medium to deliver a speech that paints everything fantastic. And if at the point, right, it wasn't that great fantastic, right? But everybody's believing that everything is coming back normal, everything is getting better, Hi, politicians. Meanwhile, left, right, and center, you get to see unpaid workers, unpaid pensioners. And when you ask them what's going on, they will say it wasn't Tinubu that owed them. Sort of, you know? So whatever it is that is so obvious, they will tell you that no, that wasn't Tinubu. Or they continue to live in their own world. So in that part, yeah, Gbaja also used the medium to talk about the the fake unity of Nigeria. You know, we have to be united. Our unity is our all this kind of talk, right? Let's go to that one. Gbaja.
Thank Nigerians. We thank those of you who have been able to send that message. That dire message which initially everybody was arms akimbo. That where we going? Oh, we're hungry, we're hungry. But they realized all Mr. President has done is to press the reset button that should have been pressed many years ago. And we thank him for that. Now, while our vision is clear and our destination certain, it is not lost on us that the journey itself is not an easy one. Fixing the things that have long been broken imposes cost, entails sacrifice, and requires time. That is why, under the leadership of our president, this administration has pursued a two-pronged approach of reforms. On the one hand, and targeted interventions, on the other hand, to ease the burden of sacrifice on all our citizens. National unity is the sine qua non for national development. If there is no national unity, there can be no national development. Where there is no peace, there cannot be progress. National unity is not the absence of disagreement. Disagreements are part of the human condition. However, national unity defined as an active commitment to live and work together in peace ensures that every disagreement doesn't devolve into an argument, and that even when we argue, we don't do so from a place of fear, anger, resentment, and naked appeals to our worst instincts. Our differences are not a weakness unless we choose to turn an asset into a liability. Our diversity can be a unifying force. We can draw strength and inspiration from the scintillating variety of culture, music, arts, and traditions that we have here and that are so greatly admired across the world. Unity does not mean we must all think alike. No, far from it. It does not mean we must all vote alike or worship in the same way. But it does mean that we must agree on one thing. Nigeria belongs to all of us, and we will rise together or fall together.
The people who are responsible for the weaponized, divisive politics are talking about our differences shouldn't be, a cause. It should rather probably be a blessing. You get what I mean? It should be our strength. Unity, in its words. What is unity without respect? However, over time, before the advent of the APC, at least that was the word I grew up in, though, right? Before the advent of the APC, so you always have this cultural display, cultural exchanges, and all of that in our schools and all that, in a way to probably get us, familiar with the country that we're growing up in until APC came recently, and it's still ongoing though. The Ronukus were busy on social media, right? Nearly causing this their probably like a tribal war, sort of, nearly. Simply because an Igbo girl, an American Nigerian, I've been a Nigerian American, I don't know, but she's an American, right? So she's into art, and she had this exhibition scheduled for time. I think